don't know what it was about the late 2000s, but the game industry suddenly started producing numerous wonderful things. The indie scene boomed, countless new interesting franchises, budgets going to previously forgotten genres. And among those releases there was one title that I've never expected to be as amazing as it turned out to be: Batman Arkham Asylum. I mean, come on, a comic book adaptation, a licensed game in the 2000s that will turn out to be not just not bad, but hugely important and influential for years to come? Upon replaying it yet again, as usual 100%ing the main story from a clear save slot and enjoying every single minute of my time with the game, I've decided to make this quick retrospective review of the game and share some of my excitement about it. It's very difficult to explain how and why the game is so good without sounding as if you're describing so many modern titles, because a lot of Arkham Asylum in terms of controls, concepts and mechanics became the norm for action adventures. The combat, for example, worked almost like a rhythm game, as you've directed Batman to a specific enemy and watched cool animations play out, trying to time the button presses with hits for increased damage, and paid attention to the counter icons to avoid being hit while increasing the combo meter for special attacks and finishers. It wasn't completely innovative, most of these ideas were already used in Assassin's Creed, for example, and hey, Prince of Persia Warrior Within also comes to mind, but this exact formula would become a template for other beat-em-up action adventures. Mad Max or PS4 Spider-Man, for example, work almost exactly the same. But if it was all combat, it would get boring, so the game carefully pairs it with fun, if somewhat simple stealth action. Again, some of the concepts here weren't new and some became the norm, like the see-through wall detective vision. It was welcoming to people who like their stealth slower paced, and to people who like to take more risks and will try to take down enemies as quickly and efficiently as possible. Both of these pillars evolved with the game, though not as much as they would in later titles. Still, you'd constantly get tweaks to the expected game setups, and the game never gets boring. Yet the most exciting thing about Arkham Asylum, especially to me, has been its world design. The game works very much like a Metroidvania title, with the Arkham Island having several outside and inside locations, all of which additionally evolve as the game story progresses. To motivate with the exploration, you get hidden riddles and collectibles that are genuinely fun to look for, and all of which require the use of Batman's gadgets. Just like in a typical Metroidvania, you unlock gadgets as you progress, and almost all of them provide new tools for navigation and sometimes even new ways of dealing with enemies. As the series progressed and a far larger focus was given to a more conventional open world, this is the aspect that suffered the most. In Asylum, you really get intimate with the locations, and this tight, compact world size allowed developers to make sure that every step of the story felt fresh and full of fun details. Playing the game today, however, might be somewhat problematic. The PC version, for example, works great if you have an Nvidia GPU and can enable all of the physics effects. However, while the effects are often really impressive even today, there are moments where they can cause issues and slowdowns even on a really powerful modern system. And additionally, if you don't have them enabled, the PC ports, unlike the original console release, will lack some of the visual effects. If you'd want to play on a modern console, there's an entire issue entirely, since modern consoles will have access only to the Return to Arkham remastered release that, even after numerous patches, still has issues. And a lot of scenes in the game have very rough lighting compared to the carefully hand-placed lighting of the original release. Most of the really big disappointments with the game can only be felt when compared to the sequels, however. If you're used to some of the wonderful quality of life improvements that Arkham City, Origins and Knight introduced, you will feel their absence in this first entry. Due to that, some of the enemy encounters feels less of a joy to go through, as you don't have as many fun options as you would in later games, and the fact that most of the boss encounters in the game work similarly, that was criticized even back when the game was new, feels especially disappointing now when you might have seen how cool some of the bosses in later games would turn out to be. Despite that though, Arkham Asylum remains my favorite entry in the series. Unlike the later games, I love playing it start to finish, never caring about the lack of a New Game Plus option and never getting bored towards the end of the game. It's tight, it still plays really well, even if some of the later game's improvements would benefit it greatly. It has surprisingly good storytelling and it never overstays its welcome. If you've somehow never played it before, definitely give it a try, and if you did, maybe it's time for a revisit, as long as you can get a good version of the game working.